Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. I am so thrilled to have you here today. You know, if you've glanced at the news recently, you probably feel like you're staring at a thousand-piece jigsaw puzzle where half the pieces belong to a totally different box, right? We're seeing all these headlines about artificial intelligence reshaping tech, wars disrupting global trade, healthcare costs going completely through the roof, and politics just growing more divided by the minute. But what if I told you these aren't isolated events at all? Today, we're going to connect the dots. We're going to see exactly how these seemingly distant, random global shocks are actually deeply interconnected. It's a massive ripple effect that ultimately crashes right into our daily lives.
Just consider this reality for a second. A massive geopolitical shock, like the Iran war, it doesn't just stay overseas. It immediately translates into a major dislocation in global markets, triggering soaring energy prices and, frankly, massive corporate windfalls. It's a really stark reminder that in our hyper-connected world, a tremor on one side of the globe literally shifts the ground beneath our feet on the other.
Okay, let's dive right into this. We have four thematic pillars acting as our roadmap today. First, AI's shifting power balance. Second, war, oil, and inflation. Third, the rising healthcare crisis. And fourth, America's political fractures. Starting off with Section 1, AI's shifting power balance. The race for supremacy. The very top of the tech industry is experiencing a massive structural upheaval right now, and the crown is actively changing hands. Let's walk through how this happened, because it's pretty wild. Back in May 2025, OpenAI's highly anticipated Codex model underperformed. A lot of software developers just found it too slow and clunky. And instead of doubling down on what businesses actually needed, OpenAI kind of got distracted by side projects, things like their video generator Sora and various consumer devices. Well, that opened a massive window. By December 2025, their rival Anthropic released the Opus 4.5 model, and developers were absolutely mesmerized. So while OpenAI ended up missing its 1 billion user goal in early 2026 amid some crazy competition from Google, Anthropic just went on this huge multi-month growth streak. Fast forward to August 2026, and Anthropic is actually accelerating its fall IPO plans because of how dramatically they've managed to capture the market. This whole situation brilliantly illustrates the brutal, unforgiving nature of the AI boom. Think about it. On one side, you have OpenAI, the company that literally sparked the boom, now facing slowing consumer growth, internal leadership reshuffles, and a delayed IPO. And on the other side, Anthropic has surged to near a $1 trillion valuation. Their revenue growth has actually surpassed OpenAI's, and that is entirely powered by the success of their highly focused developer tool, Claude Code. Even major financial players like Blackstone are now choosing Anthropic over OpenAI for their private equity portfolios. Now, obviously, OpenAI isn't just taking this lying down. They've launched a brand new enterprise push, releasing a quote-unquote super app that integrates Codex with ChatGPT, and they've struck up some new deals with Amazon. But make no mistake, leaders like Sam Altman are fighting an incredibly steep uphill battle to regain the crown that OpenAI used to comfortably wear. But let's move beyond the corporate tech battles for a minute and ask a much more crucial question about the everyday economic impact. How do we actually protect workers from AI? According to a recent petition signed by over 1,000 economists, and we're talking including 17 Nobel laureates here, we are staring down the barrel of a predicted permanent loss of 10 million jobs by 2050. And that's entirely due to AI displacement. So how in the world do economists propose we fix this? Well, the answer might actually lie in the tax code. See, right now, our tax laws heavily favor capital over labor. Thanks to really generous depreciation rules and tax cuts, the effective marginal tax rate on new equipment is just 4%. Meanwhile, the rate on human labor sits at roughly 27%. Economists are warning that this massive imbalance actively encourages businesses to replace human workers with AI and machines. It's just cheaper. To intentionally slow down this AI-driven job replacement, there's a growing proposal to shift taxes from labor back to capital. Now, some folks are suggesting a specific compute or robot tax, but experts argue that's honestly just too difficult to design without accidentally hindering important medical and scientific research. Instead, they say narrowing the general tax gap between capital and labor might be the absolute most effective way to protect everyday workers.
Moving on to Section 2, War, Oil, and Inflation, Economic Shockwaves.
Now, what's really interesting about this data is the sheer scale of the numbers. Because of the ongoing Iran war and the prolonged closure of the vital Strait of Hormuz waterway, global fuel supplies have been severely choked. And the result? Well, ExxonMobil saw profits more than double to $14.5 billion in Q2. Chevron saw earnings rise nearly five-fold to $12.1 billion.
Distant geopolitical instability is obviously terrible for global peace, but it turns out it's absolutely fantastic if you're holding oil stock. These are just staggering, record-breaking corporate profit numbers.
And this instability, it isn't just limited to the Middle East. Regional tensions are stretching all the way to North Africa. Recently, as many as 60,000 migrants streamed into the Spanish enclave of Ceuta in a matter of days. It's a really potent reminder of how rapidly regional disputes, in this specific case involving Morocco, Algeria, and Spain, can just boil over into massive border crises.
But how does this all hit your wallet? Let's bring it back to Main Street and see how this builds. That closure of the Strait of Hormuz, it doesn't just enrich oil companies, it spikes commodity and freight costs for everyone. And companies, they're passing those costs directly onto you. Unilever's raising prices on everyday items like Hellmann's mayonnaise and Dove soap. Yes, international warfare is literally making your sandwich more expensive. Boston Beer, the maker of Samuel Adams, and paint manufacturer Sherwin-Williams, they're hiking prices too. Globally, we're seeing Eurozone inflation rebound to 2.9%, and that's largely driven by a massive 10% spike in energy inflation. A shipping route closes thousands of miles away, and suddenly your groceries and your home improvement projects take a direct hit.
All right, let's look at Section 3, the rising healthcare crisis, societal fractures.
So a deeply concerning trend is emerging right now in American healthcare. With the recent expiration of federal subsidies that once kept health premiums somewhat affordable, the whole landscape of coverage is dramatically shifting. By 2035, the Congressional Budget Office is projecting a massive 41% spike in the uninsured population, alongside a 33% drop in Affordable Care Act coverage and a 14% drop in Medicaid.
To really understand what that data means for real people, consider Suzanne Mercer. 2.6 million people lost their ACA plans as of February 2026 alone. Suzanne and her husband lost theirs because the premiums completely skyrocketed to over $4,000 a month. Now Suzanne is being forced to skip critical, doctor-ordered medical scans because basic coverage has simply become unaffordable. People are literally crossing their fingers and delaying preventative care because they just don't have any other choice.
And the systemic fallout of all that delayed care is pretty staggering. Take a look at the single number, $400 million. That represents HCA Healthcare's profit drag in just one single quarter. Why? Because when millions of people lose insurance, they eventually end up in the emergency room, where hospitals are legally required to treat them. This creates a rising wave of uninsured patients whose bills just become bad debt. It's a severe financial double whammy for hospital networks all across the country.
And finally, Section 4, America's political fractures, a divided nation.
These domestic tensions were seeing them highly visible at places like the Hoover Dam, where the federal government is proposing mandatory cuts to the Colorado River, cuts that could reduce water use for Arizona, California, and Nevada by up to 3 million acre-feet annually. Resource scarcity like this is just one of the many immense localized pressures that are fueling deep national divides and really frustrating voters across the entire political spectrum.
We see this polarization crystal clear in Washington right now. Just recently, Dr. Anthony Fauci faced an explosive Senate hearing regarding the pandemic. Facing a highly contentious environment and potential legal traps, Dr. Fauci invoked his Fifth Amendment rights over 100 times. From the Republican perspective, this silence was viewed as a total evasion of duty. Senator Rand Paul made that clear, stating, "You have for years avoided responsibility. Loss of trust may be your most damaging legacy."
But on the flip side of the aisle, defenders like cancer research advocate Ellen Sigel argue that Dr. Fauci was essentially backed into a corner by a partisan process. She stated, "He had no choice, unfortunately, because this clearly was not a hearing that was looking for the facts." This really sharp contrast just shows how deeply polarized the interpretation of public health, science, and government trust has become in America today.
And all this friction, it's causing intense internal battles within the parties themselves, particularly for the Democrats. You've got insurgent Democratic socialists like Donovan McKinney in Michigan, winning primaries by campaigning on populist platforms to address the very economic and healthcare crises we've been talking about today. However, centrist Democrats like Representative Josh Gottheimer are warning that these far-left policies risk alienating the independent voters they need to win general elections. Across crucial primary states, everyday voters are just sharply divided. Some are totally exhausted and demanding complete systemic upheaval, while others are desperately prioritizing pragmatic electability.
So the crucial point to take away from all of this is that none of these events happen in a vacuum. From Anthropic overtaking OpenAI, to a war in the Middle East raising the price of your mayonnaise, to expiring healthcare subsidies fracturing political parties, it is all deeply, deeply connected. In a world shaped by rapidly shifting technology, severe economic shocks, and deep political fractures, how will these global ripples reshape your daily life next? It's a butterfly effect happening right in front of our eyes, and honestly, staying informed is your absolute best defense. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll catch you next time.